Cool.
Alrighty.
So thank you. So welcome everybody. This is a very special Zoom. Something we get questions and requests about all the time is there more research on access bars? Is it being done? What can I do to contribute? What else can we share with the world? One of the many questions we get. So we have a couple people on with us today. One is Dr. Terri Hope. You probably know her because she published the pilot study last year with the access bars research. And so she's on today to launch and explain the new research that she's creating and how you guys can contribute with the clients that you work with. We also have Lauren Polly on with us today. You guys may know her as well. She's been on some of the other Zooms. She's been working with Dr. Terri and also helping when you guys email requests about research. And she's also going to share with you another request we get a lot of is, I'm interested in taking bars or access tools into a business or a hospital or a yoga studio. How do I go about doing that? So she's going to walk you through kind of how to find when you identify a place you want to talk with, how you can use their language, write a form letter, contact them using normal language, not just access speak, to create more. So we kind of have both of those things today, which I'm really grateful you guys are on. Thank you so much. All right, so Terri, do you want to start with explaining a little bit about what the research is and then screen share and we can put any links or whatever in the chat as you talk?
Fantastic. So thank you, everybody. And this has been months and months of work to put together. And when I finished it at the end of December, what happened is somebody said, oh, can we add 3 more languages? So we now have this piece of research, which is access bars in anxiety, depression, and stress in 9 languages. So what I'm going to show you, and like anybody who is an Access Bars Practitioner Plus could contribute people to participating in this research. And that's one of the things that came up in the tons of conversation I had with people who are going, wow, I really want to contribute to research, and how can we do it? And research can sometimes be a little bit kind of sticky and stuff. So I think this is going to be fantastic. So let me just share my screen with you. How did I do this?
Go down to the little share button.
I got that, but I think I think I got that. Hold on. Let me just.
There.
Cool. So anybody can come to this link, which is accessbarsresearch.com. And it's a pretty simple page. And what you would do is bring any of your clients to this page and click on your appropriate language. So I'm just going to run you through how to do this, and then we can just do questions after that. So when you come here, this site is completely secure. It's absolutely HIPAA compliant, GDPR compliant, anything that comes through with all of the pieces that would go into good research have been looked at for this to happen. So in this case, I would just click on participate in English. And where it's going to take you is to the form that your client is going to fill out. So in order for them to participate in this research, the person has to have one of 3 different things. So they have to have either stress or anxiety or depression or all of the above or just 2 of the above in order to participate. So you're going to click on the language, and this is the entire consent form, which they have to sign in order to participate. Am I speaking slowly enough for translation?
You're great.
Okay, cool. So it just goes through all of the pieces of what Access Bars is, what the study entails. And with this study, there's 2 groups, which is a little bit tricky, but I'm going to share more about that after I run through what the research is. So there's forms to fill in, which is this particular form. And then what you're going to do is you're going to select the person to either join group A, which is they're going to have their bars run right after they do the first part of the questionnaire, which is a really short questionnaire. It takes about 7 or 8 minutes, not long at all. Or they're going to end up being in group B, which means which is a control group. So group B, they're going to sign the consent form, and then what they're going to do is lie down somewhere or hang out somewhere and relax for 30 to 60 minutes. And then when they finish that, they'll complete the second part of the questionnaire, which is what group A does as well. And then they can either have their bars run either right away, not at all, or they could select another time. And there's different ways that you can actually do that. And by setting up the research this way, one of the intentions or places I wanted to go to is to have this published. And by getting tons of people to contribute to this research, will actually allow it to be published in wherever it is we selected. And the fact that it's being done in so many different languages makes it really a fantastic piece of research. So what it talks about in the rest of this form is how we're going to protect and make everything confidential, which means that their name is not attached or any part of their identification is attached to the answers that they give in the questionnaire. So it's completely confidential, even to me. So that makes it so that, and then, you know, when you give the person the questionnaire, you're not kind of supposed to watch them do it, but you can give them information through it, and I'll share that with you too. So everything is completely confidential, and the participation is voluntary, so you can ask them if they would like to participate, and if they choose not to, doesn't matter, no harm, and they can be your client, so they can pay you for the to come to their sessions, and there's no additional cost to participate in the study, and they won't be paid to participate in the study, and that's kind of an important thing. So all the data that's collected, the analysis of the data, and the information, and anything that comes as a result of this research is part of the research, but there's no payment or compensation for any part of it. And then
I have a quick question that was in the chat.
Sure.
Their question about the control group.
Yeah.
Does it require them to be in the same room with someone sitting there?
No. No.
Thank you.
What I look to have happen is that try to create this as being as simplistic as possible, and make it possible at the same time, because you want to make it easy, right? So when you get down to the bottom of the consent form, they would type in their name. So I'm just going to put my name in here so you can see that. And
Terri, can I ask you a question too while you're doing this?
Yeah.
If I were a practitioner or facilitator and I have someone come in who wants to participate, is it okay if I, say I have my computer and I let them use it to fill this out?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. And an entranceway to the research is through the consent form. So the easiest way to do this, instead of going through and copying this consent form link, is to do it directly through the Access Bars Research link that I showed you at the beginning. And what happens is everything is linked together. So they have to tick that they consent to the terms of and conditions of the research. And then they create a fabulous squiggle to say that they've signed it. And then once they hit the submit form, come on, you can do it. And it's slow. It takes you directly to the research. So if the person is with you there, you would know if they're going to receive access bars, you're going to tell them that they are. So in this case, we're just going to select group A, and I'm female and I'm 22 today.
Terri, can I pause you here for a couple questions that are at a good point?
Yeah, sure.
So someone's asking, when a client comes in, does the practitioner choose if they're in group A or group B, or they're coming to run bars, so you will be selecting that? Or how do we choose?
What I would do is follow what you know. Like if you have somebody, and there's a couple of different ways you can choose group A or group B. They could be a client that's coming to you and you say, wow, I have this cool piece of research that if you're interested, I would love it if you would participate in it. And you can do it so that you could say, hey, have you got some extra time? What I'd like you to do is lie down comfortably, or fill out this questionnaire and just relax for about 30 minutes, and then finish the questionnaire, and then we can run your bars afterwards. Or you can follow the energy of it and go, oh, this person probably would want to have their bars run immediately. Or you could find somebody who is like your mother-in-law, or some person who may have a lot of stress or something, and they may not want to have their bars run, but they would like to contribute to research. And in that case, you could say, hey, can you assist me with this research and fill out this form, hang out for 30 minutes or an hour, and then complete the form, and then never have their bars run afterwards. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I've got a question.
Let me ask this one from the chat. Can someone offer a discount on a bar session if they agree to join, or would that be considered payment for participating?
So people, the idea of the research is to look at access bars in everyday practice. So you, all practitioners would get paid as they choose. So if you chose to do bar sessions for no payment, that would be entirely up to you. But if it was a regular client and you chose to give them discounts, or you chose to be fully paid, it's entirely up to you. But you don't have to make it free because they're participating in the research. Like, I really wanted everybody to benefit from this, because that's what bars in everyday practice is.
Thank you.
Right? Yeah. Is that good?
Yeah, that was great.
Cool. So now that we know that I'm 22 years old, what you would need to do at the end of this first page is to check all that apply when it comes to things that you are receiving medical care or counseling for. So anything with a star on it is a mandatory question. So if the person says, oh, it's not moving forward, if it's not progressing, it's because they actually need to answer one of these things with the red star on it in order for them to proceed. Cool?
Dr. Terri, if they, for example, would say they have stress or they are depressed, but they're not currently seeking medical care for it, can they check those boxes?
So what this question is are you currently receiving medical care or counseling? Because in the next thing, so this is just if they are receiving medical care or counseling for current. Cool?
Yep.
That answer?
Yep, thank you. Just wanted to make sure that was clear for that
No,
one.
it's good. Well, there's a lot of components to this, because I went, wow, what if we get a lot of people who are receiving medical care, and that will give us some indicators of some of the clients that we're getting, and if in fact that they've had to receive medical care for their depression, that if we had a difference in their depression at the end of the study, then that would be like a fantastic piece of information. And so anyway, so that's kind of what the idea behind that was. So, and then you're totally into the study. So it says, do you currently have pain? Are you currently stressed? For me, I would say yes. And then what the person's going to do is rate their intensity of their stress. So 1 is minimal and 4 is extreme. So I'm extremely stressed today. Can't you tell? And then anytime they would just go through the questionnaire. The one on the bottom is, are you happy? So it's either, yes, I'm extremely happy, or no, I'm not as happy as I could be. And that will bring you a drop-down menu of how they would rate their happiness. So then whoopsies, see now I didn't answer one of them. Mandatory, oh, I'm quite happy. So as you see, it made you pop back to where that was. So now you're into the guts of the research. And each one of them, so the idea behind this is that they would read look at each statement, read it, and just from what they currently feel is their current situation, anything that would apply to them over the last week, including the day that they do the questionnaire. And this is the way that this particular tool was designed. And somebody's writing on the screen. So this was the way it was designed, and they would just go through and answer all of the questions, rating them from 0 to 3, which I'm just going to go through here quickly so I can show you what the next page looks like. Can somebody write on my screen?
I see that too. I have no idea how that's there.
I'm going, where did that come from? Maybe I have visitors in my office. That was gone. So basically, they would just quickly go through and really their gut reaction of what it is, the question that's asking, and if that applies to today or any time over the last week. So then when they hit the next button, which did I miss? I was busy looking at the squiggle on the string. Oh, okay. So when they hit the next button, what happens is they're gonna, brings you to the screen about how long is your session. So everybody does different lengths of sessions. Some people come in for a short session, some are longer. So I'm actually gonna go for a 120-minute session. And then,
Terri, does it have to be a full session or can it be a mini session?
So it can be anything. So it would be running bars how you would run bars. So you don't have to run every bar. You run bars based on following the energy of what is required. So 30 minutes is the minimum that could be done for this particular piece of research, but it could vary depending on what's there. So there's no form and structures in terms of which bars you need to run. Does that answer your question, Bets? Cool.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Terri,
Okay. Yeah.
This is Andrea, translator from Brazil. I have somebody asking if you created this scale or if it was existent prior to this study.
The first part I created, actually, and I had some help with Lauren. And then this next part of the scale is an existing standardized scale that which you can, to do research, you actually have to use standardized scales. Otherwise, it's not statistically relevant, and particularly if you're looking to publish. If you're not looking to publish, it kind of doesn't matter, but in this case, it is. So when you get to the bottom of this, is that an answer it? Cool.
And then
Yes,
they're also asking if they do a 20-minute session, what should they mark? Just choose the one that's closest.
Okay, good question. How I set it up was the minimum was 30. And let me just noodle that for a little bit to see if a 20-minute session, I guess if you did like 45 minutes, you would pick the closest one to it. Or if you did, 20 minutes, I would prefer it if it was 30 minutes as a minimum, preferably. But if, like, let's say you did one that was 65 minutes, you would pick 60 minutes. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And Dr. Terri, can you just clarify, anyone can participate in this, whether it's their first time getting their bars run or like their 100th time?
Anybody.
And what about children?
Absolutely. Okay. So the thing is with children is they have to be able to answer the questions themselves, right? So it's up to the participant to answer the question. So if you're talking about maybe somebody who's 5 years old, how can they contribute to it? Fantastic if they can do it all, right?
Thank you.
They're like, it's probably better if they can comprehend it.
Yep.
Cool. But anybody can participate. And if they've had their bars run before, it doesn't matter as long as they have anxiety, depression, or stress. And if they don't, then I can't, that would actually eliminate them from the research. I'm going to do a lot more research, but in this case, that would be the thing. So if you still had bars run, 100 times and you had depression still, then that's like fantastic that you could contribute to it, or your client could contribute to it. So when you get to the session part, after they fill out how long the session's going to be, then you get to this thing, which is that's where they're going to run the session. So the session could be, if it's 30 minutes, you're just going to leave your computer open, or their computer open, or their phone open, or your iPad open when they get to this particular screen. And then once they finish their access bar session, or they finish, relaxing for 30 or 60 minutes, then they would proceed to the next part, which looks at the same questions again. So we're going to evaluate what it is before and how they feel immediately following the access bar session. And so you wouldn't click next here until the session was actually finished, whichever they were in group A or they were in group B. And then I'm not going to click next because I don't want to take you through all of the questions again. But the cool thing is that when they finish doing this questionnaire, there's a 3-week follow-up. So, which is like a stroke of magnificent genius on the programmer's part to create it, that we can actually do a 3-week follow-up for you, and it will go directly to the person who filled out the form, to their email address, which they would fill in when they did the consent form, and invite them to complete that as the next step. So,
excuse me, I had a question about that.
Yeah.
This is Aurora from Virginia.
Hi.
Hi, and I've been following this and I read through it. If it's someone who does the rest period,
Yeah.
and then they have the bars run somewhere in that period, either directly after or during that time before the follow-up, won't that potentially alter the result?
What in the follow-up, there's a question that says, did you have your bars run since the initial questionnaire? So whether they were part of group A or group B, each one will have and it will say, did you have your bars run I think I did 1, 2, or 3 times as the question. So what it does will it alter it? It may, but we'll be able to see how many
exactly
people, right? Yeah.
Because I figured you were tracking that, but it's like, okay, if everybody wants to have their bars run, then we won't get the comparison.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a lot of information to look at once this is complete. But I look to make it as comprehensive so that we could actually get a sense of, what we could include in this and what changes, what may have affected the results when we get the end result done. So I'm hoping that I made it simple enough so that we could get this to happen. And the more people we have doing this, I went like, what would it take to have 10,000 people or more? Right?
I have one more question.
Certainly.
Back to the diagnosis, or it's a person decides whether they're experiencing stress, anxiety, or depression. They don't require ever having a diagnosis. They don't require being on medication. Is that correct?
That's correct. But
you're noting if they are.
That's right. Because if lots of people have stress and they never go they never go and seek medical attention for stress.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Right? Yeah. But it's the part about, are you receiving counseling or medication for it, allows us to look at that component as well, so we can, segment the data. Cool?
Dr. Terri?
Yeah.
The Spanish translation asked us to ask the following question. Is there a definition for stress, depression, and anxiety so people know what they're answering to from a Spanish participant?
Okay, that's a really great question. I think that most people know when they have anxiety, and most people would know when they have stress. I can send, most times if you look at depression, there's a significant sort of way of looking at that they have to have like 5 symptoms that they've had for more than 2 weeks, and they're quite significant. However, there's a level of depression that occurs in a lot of people, which is long-term, not necessarily falls into the classification of depression, but long-term, and it could last for years, and they would be not classifiable by standard psychological testing methods, but it's called dysthymia, and a lot of people actually suffer from dysthymia. So for me, if the person says I'm really depressed, they don't have to really be classified by the standardized methods, because there's all kinds of places where people are actually, fall into that dysthymia category. So depressed, I guess it's how they feel about it. That make sense? Is that enough information?
I think that's probably good. She might be translating again.
Sorry.
The question is, people don't distinguish between anxiety and anguish.
Anxiety and anguish. Is there a difference? Well, when I look at that energetically, is there a difference? Like, it's more like a question. Does that make sense? Like, a person wouldn't, if you said, do you have anxiety? Most people would go like, they would be aware of it. But you don't have to become a diagnostician as a BARS to have them, participate in the study. You say, wow, do you have anxiety? Most people go, oh, they're pretty sure they do.
Thank you.
It doesn't have to be classified.
And
No.
Dr. Terri, let me ask you a couple other questions from the chat.
Okay.
One is, how long will we have to participate in this research? Is there a cutoff date?
Good question. Well, because we added the other languages, we're kind of starting late. And originally the cutoff date was the end of September, and I can push it to the end of October. But for sure, the hard line cutoff for it is the end of October of 2019.
Thank you. And someone's asking, is it possible to print out the form? And I think you already addressed this, but just so everyone's very clear, and fill it out and then scan it and send it back to you, or does it need to be filled out through the website?
It has to be filled out through the website, because that's how we're actually going to get it, so that the signature it's like electronic. So the whole thing is electronic, and we wouldn't be able to do the 3-week follow-up if it was printed out. Yeah. It's just part of the ergonomics of it.
And I think Sarah's asking, it says, hi, Terri, do you plan to do this just for I think she means the US. They do like to do their own research. I have been talking with the innovation agency, NHS Cheshire, and wondered if it would help talking with them.
This research is global. So everybody around the world can contribute. And 9 language were as many languages as we chose for this particular thing. So hopefully we addressed enough of the common languages that would allow everybody to participate as much as possible. If there's something extra outside of that we could create differently, I would be like, I'm all about, let's create more research, 100%. So we can talk separate if that would be helpful, or I can share with you how you could do it with that group.
Thank you. And if you guys are listening and you do have questions, because at the beginning people were saying, oh, I'd love to do research on addiction and with, PTSD, and wonderful. So for this research, like Terry's saying, it's on anxiety, stress, and depression. So if you have questions, though, about other research or want to work with Dr. Terri, and Lauren helps answers those questions too, you can email research@accessconsciousness.com. This is, the one that we're working on right now. And like Dr. Terri said, we'd love there to be more. And so that is an email that you guys can write to if you have questions about other projects or questions like extrapolations.
Yeah. And there's other pieces of research that I'm working on, which are not part of this. And they're it's not that it's secret, it's just that they're not fully put together. So there's all kinds of ways that we can, I always look at research, like research can contribute to programs, and programs can contribute to research. So it's we can get it so it creates something way greater.
Can someone participate in the study more than once?
No.
Okay.
It's a one-off.
And then some people work in hospitals, and they're saying, is it possible to, I think for people that come in, say, for example, to participate in this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if you guys are a practitioner, a facilitator, really, and someone asked earlier, hey, can I share this link on social media? And no, because really you need, as all the questions that you guys have, and as we're going through this and Dr. Terry's explaining how to use that form, it's really so you guys can have a different interaction with your clients. If someone has stress, anxiety, depression, and say, hey, we're doing research on this, would you like to contribute? And walk them, they have to fill out the form like Dr. Terri said, but you can help them as their practitioner, walk them through it, they fill it out, you leave the computer open, they finish it, but they're participating in the study, but you're there to explain it and offer the possibility. And, there's over 10,000 of you guys facilitators. So what would it take for there to be a lot of data coming back in that Terri can use for her research, and that we can use to get back to you guys to let the world know how bars affects these conditions?
Yeah.
Emily, can I add something about the hospital? If you are working in a hospital and doing bar sessions already and you want to do this study, just run it up the chain of command in the facility to get clearance for it. So I work in a hospital. I know kind of how things go. It's a very structured environment. So just make sure that you're getting clearance for actually doing that.
Yeah. And oftentimes when it's a facility like that, they'll want it actually run through their institutional review board that will actually, it can get a little bit sticky, depends on who it is and what it is, because doing official research that's outside of the constraints of what their policies are can be, yeah, yeah, interesting. So yeah, and the idea about this is to be an invitation to your clients and to have them participate in it. It's a really great way to interact with people. And in so doing, like let's say the person comes in and they say, yeah, I'm here to see you and I actually have a lot of stress. And you can follow up with them a couple of weeks later and say, how you doing? I remember you said that, you know, you were pretty stressed. You can find another reason to communicate with them other than just maybe other ways that you could do it, right? So it's a really good way to get, you know, communicate with your clients in another way.
And then one other question, these are from earlier. Someone's asking, has this been registered with an ethics panel?
No. No. Because it's global. So you would have to register it with, in this case, 9 different ethics committees. And I have found a way to get it published. I already have my publisher picked out, which would allow that to be cool. And since it's in everyday practice, not necessarily in an institution or in a structured environment, it's like everyday practice. It's not as required. Otherwise, I'd have to certify every single one of you as researchers.
And someone else was asking, what is the start date of this research? When can we start?
Well, we already have a couple of people who have started to use the interface. So anytime soon.
Now is the time.
Now is the time.
One other question, how do you prevent false data or fabrication?
Well, if somebody chose to do that, that would be just an interesting point of view. So I really, you know, we can't stop people from creating it the way that whatever answers they're going to give to it. And what would it take for everyone to do it who actually really wants to contribute to research, not create a good outcome?
Thank you. So to everyone asking questions, we'll put, when we send out this replay and put it in the Facebook groups for the practitioners and facilitators, we'll include all these links too. The website to go to that Betsy just put in there where you can access the forms and you can start using it right away. The email to reach Dr. Terri, all of that stuff, we will send in the replay as well. And we could take a couple, and you guys can feel free to unmute too and ask questions. And then we're also going to have Lauren show you how to approach, and Terri show you how to, like, if you have a yoga studio, things like that you want to approach and run bars and access tools, how to go about approaching them. So we can move on to that in just a second if we are ready, if you guys are ready for that too.
Perfect.
Can I have another question, please?
Sure.
There is a Brazilian CF that's a psychologist and neuropsychologist, and she wants to help and contribute with the research, and she's asking if it's possible to have in Portuguese, because she does not speak English.
It is in Portuguese. It is available in Portuguese.
Yep. Andrew, if you go to that website, everyone just clicks on their language and then the whole thing is in their language.
Yeah. And I should show you too, if I can. When you're at the research site, let me just go here. You'll find that over in the right-hand corner, so this is the welcome panel, but there's also, and this is for you guys, a panel which gives you the instructions. So if you don't have to listen to this Zoom a million times, if you, is that all the instructions are here in every single language. And they're downloadable. So it's just taking my computer a second to do that. But each one, if you go here, you can download the instructions so that you have them on your computer if you require them. So yeah, it's just, and these are specific for you. They're not for your clients, but just be familiar with them. If you can get familiar with them, and then you can really so you can share with your clients how they can become part of this research. And I created a Facebook group which is a closed group, which they're going to share with you, called Bars Research. And from that, if you have any questions that I can answer for you quickly, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, great. Awesome. So, as you guys, we will send out the replay, and really this is ready for you guys to go out and create. So anyone that's coming you do for sessions, you can offer this as a possibility if they'd like to participate. And then that Facebook group I just put in the chat, you can continue to ask questions there. And that way we can all kind of interact with you as you go along if you have questions as you're working on this. And if, down the road and maybe like a few weeks or a month or so, we need to do another Q&A Zoom. Possibly we can kind of watch the Facebook group for that and see if that would contribute, and then we can have that as well. If you guys are ready to go on the next part, then let's do it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Terri, do you want to share your screen?
You can be. Do I want to share my screen, or you want to share your screen?
I don't have the document pulled up. I can get it though.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay,
One thing while we search for that, I'm looking while you're looking, I'm sure. About the research too, the first 4 questions in the study are actually going to be used for access marketing. And then the second page with the standardized questions, that's what Terri's going to be using for her research. So that research data won't be put out till way later because she's got to do her special thing for that, and it has to be kept secret. Meanwhile, we're going to be pulling data, I think every 3 months. We had talked about that. That may change because some people don't need a published article. They just need, hey, we polled 5,000 people and they all reported 58% drop in their anxiety levels. And that's enough to kind of get a wow, and you're in the door at some of these places. So that's a secondary thing that we're doing as well, especially for things like yoga studios, that kind of stuff. They may not need a published article, but if you have this, it may add a lot to your business and pitching points,
Yeah, and the thing with that is that particular part is not going to be included in the research. So generally speaking, pulling data from research prior to the end of a study, you won't do, but it's actually not being included in the research, but it allows us to get lots of good information. So yeah, I guess we'll figure out how we're going to do that, but we'll be able to see.
Thank you, guys. And thank you for bringing that up, Lauren, because that's one of the questions we get a lot. So there'll be this research study that Terri's using that data doesn't go anywhere else, so that she can, get it reviewed and it can go get published. And then there's all these other questions that we can immediately, after several months, and if you guys have thousands of people hopefully participating around the world, we'll have really big numbers to say, like Lauren's saying, just here's this amount decrease in depression and anxiety. It's not an official paper, but it's a lot when they show you kind of, if you're going to a place like a yoga studio business, just to the wow factor, a school, things like that.
And it is independently gathered, which actually counts a lot as well, because you can say it wasn't like Access was gathering, it was all this gathering all around. So being able to kind of put that into is good.
This is, and even that part of the thing that about research is that Access actually can't collect the data. Mm-hmm. So it's completely independent. They have no hand in what happens, who, what, where, when, and why, except for they might get the outcome of it. So this research actually was put together and actually sponsored by individuals financially to make it happen. So really grateful for that too.
All right. So we're going to go over a form letter with you guys just to kind of, it's a possibility to use to get your foot in the door with, because kind of anybody or everybody. And you're going to see a lot of times people think of form letters kind of like a brochure with all the information already there. That's not what Terri and I created. This is much more of a relationship builder connection point for you all. So a lot of it is just super, super basic, and more of it is about looking at someone's website, looking at somebody's business, and seeing what's congruent between what you're offering and what they're offering, and how you can contribute to them and they can contribute to you to be able to build these connections. So this is the letter here. Are we getting this translated for everybody too? You know?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So Terri and I were going to go over some websites that we found too, just to kind of teach you, like if I was looking at this one business, what I would maybe pull apart to kind of build that connection with this. So,
do you have those websites? Cool.
Let's see. So now you're sharing my screen. I can't get to the base here. Let me put it, I'll put it in the chat. Can you?
Do I need to stop share?
I think if I come out of full screen, how does that work? Okay, there we go. Hold on a second. So we found two. We found a yoga studio and wellness center, and then this kind of holistic practice. Let me pull this up.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I think that will be helpful.
Okay.
There you go.
Sorry, technical stuff here. So this is an alternative practice. I'll share my screen in a second once my internet does its thing. Share. All right, so this is a health and wellness center, and Terri and I basically spent an hour just kind of going on Google and looking at locations and Googling wellness centers, holistic centers, yoga centers. So if you are interested in getting some business going and some connections in your community, that's just a good place to start. See what populates in your area. And then we found this one as kind of a cool opening where there may be some congruencies between what we offer and what they're offering. And Terri, feel free to jump in here.
Yeah, so when I go to this website, I went, oh, I wonder what kind of services and programs that they have that they're offering, and is there a connection there? So, you know, is this a possible, well, you've heard of them before, do they have something going on that might, where you can actually see where there's a connection, easy connection between access bars or body processes, or not, and how can you put the two together? But you can easily identify if the person or the center might be an open door, and it doesn't mean that just because it doesn't show up there that it's a closed door, but it gives you a sense of where they're playing.
Mm-hmm. And it's nice too, because if you go to have a conversation, whether you're sending in the form letter, you're picking up the phone, or you're popping in for an in-person, if you actually know a bit about their business and who to talk to and connect to, it shows a lot more than just kind of coming in and being like, this is what I offer, what can you give me? So again, this really is about building much more of a relationship base for referrals, for going in as a guest speaker, holding workshops there. There's lots of different possibilities depending on what you want to build with your individual business. But Terri and I went first to this service button, and it's funny because things popped out different for both of us because we both have our own unique perspective, of course, so you may find different things too. For me, with the services, adrenal fatigue popped out immediately. That's actually how I found Access, is I had adrenal fatigue and a chiropractor referred me to an Access practitioner to help. So that's like a personal story I would probably go and speak to this man about of, oh, I see that you work with adrenal fatigue. That's how I actually found this new modality that I teach too. And I think, Terri, you found something different that popped out.
Oh, I looked at the brain renew thing, the brain renew thing, because I love looking at brains. And the thing about balancing hormones and stuff like that, because we know that those are the two places I went, wow, there's a connection point here, maybe not so much here, and how, if you're going to have a conversation with them, how can you actually, you know, be a contribution to enhancing or creating something more with them, and contribute to their programs.
Yeah, so instead of just offering supplements or whatever it is that they do, oh, I do a gentle touch modality that can actually help this as well. So that was what we had found. Any questions about this, or kind of, if you look down this list, what pops out to you? And again, follow your awareness. What pops out first to your eyes is probably the thing that actually you could speak to. I don't have the chat up, so if someone can.
I'll let you know if there's stuff in the chat. And you guys feel free to unmute and ask questions too.
And then let me get the other one.
I have a question.
Oh, absolutely.
Would you use the same idea to go to like a fire department, or like we have EMS stations here?
Absolutely. And I think the research, like the marketing piece of the research that we're going to be pulling off in the next couple of months, will really help with that, because you can speak to a little bit of data. But even without that, I know I've had multiple people actually that I've heard of with police stations, fire departments. We've got people all over the place already doing that. But again, what is it that you can contribute? Either what is their need? Like if they're a fire department, they may not have stress management techniques or ability to de-escalate the stress that they have. That's a really good talking point. And then if you're looking at a business like this guy here, he already gives services along the same line. So what is it you can contribute to each other? So it's kind of looking at what you can contribute where there's similarities, and also if they have a need for your services that they don't actually have in place yet, that would be another great opening.
Okay, great.
That makes sense?
And that's great, Lauren, because Grant is asking, are you suggesting we approach these businesses for referral, like that we would refer to each other, or are you offering your services out of their location, or both?
Yes. Yes to all. This is totally open for anything and everything. So depending on what you want, like I've done this before with yoga studios, wellness centers, chiropractors. I build referral bases. So I'll go and offer them free sessions to the people who work in the facility so they get the energy of it. And then they use me as a referral, so they'll send clients that way. I've also gone in and done workshops and talking points, and that was, again, my foot in the door by approaching them this way. So depending on what you want to build with your business, if you like having your own location, it can be a referral source for your workshops and your classes or sessions, or maybe you looking at actually building something in their actual center. That's always a possibility as well. So yes to all, you can get creative with that.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm actually working to get into colleges and universities. That's kind of my bent. And this is Aurora again from Virginia. I've also been teaming up. We've got a new Shenandoah LGBTQ center. And working with them because they're looking to get their name out, and also like, okay, so what can we do to generate? And the program that I started with was how different are you willing to be? But for education, we've got several colleges and universities in my area, and I found it very interesting. Sometimes have to be a little creative on how to get a foot in the door. For example, I don't know what anyone else's experience is. That's why I'm kind of putting this out, what other people have found helpful. I've looked at, because of my sustainability bent, that was my master's thesis, was about teaching well-being as a path to sustainability. Talking with them, and they refer me to the well-being people who are like, well, you have to have an appointment. And that might have been just the one time I caught her. But as I'm looking at the website, what pinged for me is they have a program for exceptional girls. This is a former women's college. And so I'm talking with them. It's like these are like 13 to 17-year-olds who are actually going to college. They have, their own dorm, etc. And saying, hey, being a teenager is stressful enough. Being a teenager in college, wow, how can I support? And going that route. So I don't know if that's helpful to anybody or what anybody else has for experiences.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like that you're using your past knowledge base. I think that's always kind of a fun thing too. When and again, that speaks to the congruency. You're looking at what their need is and what they're offering, and seeing what you have in your history or what you're actually interested in lights you up. That's always a beautiful place to start. And then kind of looking at language, you know, I think another great resource is the Bowmans did a call for the BARS facilitators last year, and they talked a lot about looking at the language that people already use and being able not to do access speak, but utilize the language that they're familiar with. And for me, that's such a kindness because you're not making them stretch as much as they may need to. Being able to look at if they're using languaging around balance, or stress management, or de-escalation. We find that a lot with police stations and fire departments, hospitals, wanting to de-escalate really stressful circumstances and reaction patterns. So finding the commonalities again, finding the language share would be actually a beautiful place to start. Yeah. Anything
Absolutely.
to add, Terri? Terri, did you have anything to add?
Well, I think that, I think that when we get some of the data on stress, that's a really good place to be able to utilize some of the information because, you know, students are always looking for that. And there was some information in the research that I did. I don't know if you can stretch it to stress, but certainly changes in neurological coherence would actually allow somebody to concentrate better. So you could basically use the words that are in the research itself, which is the safest way to do it. But coherence definitely means there's more communication in brain regions.
Yeah, so I love what we're doing with that that study and pulling that data for the marketing purpose, because everybody has stress. I mean, you can take that data and go in any place. And then also the question about, are you happy? Because maybe you go into a yoga center like this site and people may be there for stress management, absolutely. And a lot of them are just looking for a happier life. And you can say, hey, after a couple bar sessions, people are reporting increased level of happiness. So it doesn't have to be a traditional pain point like modern marketing talks about. It could actually be people looking for increased possibilities. So I think that will be helpful too. Yeah.
Hi, this is Maureen. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You used a few key points like stress de-escalation, breaking reaction patterns for companies like the fire brigade and the police. And I wondered whether you might be able to just give us some more of those key terms that are used in those areas where, you know, stress does build up over a long period of time like that.
Mm-hmm. I hear de-escalation a lot with police force, first responders. I use it myself at hospitals because that's my background. I work in a hospital situation. Reaction patterns I find with these guys, especially working professionals. If you think about having a plate that's just too full and then something gets added to the plate and then people kind of explode the plate.
Yeah, sure.
BARS is fantastic at that because it basically just adds more space. It helps you eliminate and release the stress. So when I was doing it in the hospital, I called it like a stress release technique, and they really liked that. So you can be creative with how you actually approach people. But that came to me because as I was speaking to all these different health professionals, that's what I had heard out of their mouth all the time is they react before they think. And then they have regret later. And part of that is because, again, that plate too full kind of thing. So you can speak around that. I think work-life balance and being able to feel more balanced and whole. And what is that thing too? Productivity also, being able to have a clear head. Mm-hmm. That's really big in business. Actually looking at, well, productivity may actually increase because, again, people aren't going to have a spinning mind. They'll be able to focus as they move forward.
Yeah.
Get
Lovely,
creative.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm conversing with someone in England right now to look at a PTSD study in first responders. So I'm looking forward to making that happen. It's in there.
Who is that you were working with in the UK?
Her name is Tracy, I think it's Howard or something. I don't have her on my phone right now, but yeah, she's the one that I've connected to with that, and we're kind of working together to see if we can create that as a piece of research.
Okay, that will be really interesting because I'm in the UK as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And it's also interesting too, how open people are even without the research. Like we're talking to a police force right now in Arizona here in the US. And though there's not a huge study yet, there is still the opening of we're just happy to do whatever works. And because there's a cop already who is trained in bars, and it speaks to how amazing it is and has changed from him, he's been kind of like an advocate for it in the police force. So there may be more openings than you actually realize. People may be more open than you think. You may not actually need this huge body of stuff behind you. Just get in there and start connecting with people. If you find that you're missing some things that you think may actually be helpful, or you run into walls, just let us know, and that can something that we can create for the future with. But you never know, there may be an opening there that unless you actually go and start poking around a bit, you don't know it's there. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. Lauren, did you want to show one more? I know we're at the top of the hour, so if you guys, I don't want to, you know, people might have to get off. You may have to get off. You got to show that one. Do you want to go through that yoga one quickly?
Yeah, if you think it'll contribute, it's just different talking points, basically. You know, it's the same sort of thing. I don't know.
Someone was just sent me a private message